Craig Smoak.
Roger Wallace, color analyst, UT Football Radio, also does other UT Sports, is with us. 365 Sports. Raj, thanks for your time. Texas is there. They're back. First time since 2018 when they played Oklahoma after they'd beaten the Sooners in the Cotton Bowl. Is it right now what they've done in recent weeks peaking at just the right moment, or am I giving them too much credit for that?
Yeah, maybe a repeat. I mean, it doesn't get much better than what they did at Alabama, and I get what people, say about Alabama and how much they've improved and how much Jalen Milroe improved, but still, it's tough to go in there and win. But yeah, it seems like after what happened against K-State and then TCU, they were pretty dominant defensively against Iowa State, and then obviously what they did to Tech. So seems like it's kind of a repeat going on, especially on the defense, guys. I mean, if you watch that game Friday night, that's as fast as I've seen Texas play defense in a long time.
Roger, this game would seem to kind of favor them in the fact that it's about Ollie Gordon running up the middle for Oklahoma State. That's how they've been good this year. But when it comes to a guy that's that talented, do you still kind of maybe back off on, yes, Texas has been great at that part, but I mean, this dude's kind of a different animal.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think if you look at the numbers, I think that's some fool's gold here, because it at the numbers look like, it's a pretty wide margin, but somehow Oklahoma State seems to find different ways. Obviously, if Gordon gets going, now Texas did a nice job against Taj Brooks, and then they got the big lead, so kind of took that out. I mean, look at what Iowa State did in the snow running on K-State, and they ran for 9 yards against Texas. So obviously conditions are going to be perfect. Again, that defense is healthy and playing fast, so they'll key on Gordon. They know what Bowman can do. It's their second quarterback they're facing that beat them as a Texas Tech quarterback. First Donovan Smith at Houston, and now Bowman at Oklahoma State. So I think it's one of those games where, just if you're a Texas fan, just be careful looking at all the numbers, because that might make you feel a little better than you should going into a 60-minute winner take all type thing.
Roger, what was the conversation like around Austin as it appeared Oklahoma might get that little glint, that little break and the possibility of getting into this game? And then, once it was Oklahoma State, just what was kind of the general reaction that you got? Because I know most people, like, the ratings would obviously be bigger if it was Oklahoma, Texas. They would love that send-off as they're both leaving. But did people get their hopes up there?
I don't know. I think it's kind of split. I mean, I think Oklahoma's way more explosive. So I think they're a scarier team, and obviously they know how to beat Texas. They did it. And then you've got the people that say, well, we wanted Oklahoma because it would be a better win. I don't think that matters at this point. They're going to need help if you're looking at the college football playoffs, so it doesn't matter. I think if it beat a top 20 Oklahoma State team or a top 12 Oklahoma team. So I think it's probably split. I think probably deep down people may not want to admit it, but they don't mind taking on a new opponent in Oklahoma State. What a thud that would be, guys, if you go 11-1, you do all this, and then you get swept by Oklahoma and keeps you out of everything.
Yeah, that would probably be the worst thing that could ever happen. Is losing to Oklahoma once is tough enough, especially the way it went down, and then losing to them again. So we've discussed T'Vondre Sweat. We know Byron Murphy's also a major part of it, and many others on that Texas defense. But you've been around watching them a long, long time. Anything comparable to what they have right now in that front?
Well, I was here a long time ago, David, when they had a guy, Casey Hampton and Sean Rogers.
There you go. There you go.
That was a long, long time. That was a long time ago. Obviously, their 05 team had NFL players everywhere. But, yeah, the way that those two are playing in this kind of, remade Texas football program, it's been pretty special. And, Sweat was the guy last year. It was like, oh, man, they're going to lose Keandre Coburn. That's so huge. Well, it's nice that Sweat came back, but he's no Coburn. Well, they're right. He's actually been better than Coburn. They knew about Murphy because he didn't start. I think he started a handful of games in his preseason All Big 12, so everybody knew what he had. But, yeah, that's a pretty formidable tandem that you have to go back, and I made the comparisons there, but there aren't many of them for sure.
How much of an advantage is it for Texas that outside of the Pac-12 game, which probably doesn't really affect their standing all that much anyway, because one of those teams is probably getting into the playoff regardless, that their game is before the other ones?
Yeah, I mean, obviously if you win it, then you become pretty nervous, Louisville fan. And if you lose, doesn't really matter. So, you're probably going to get a New Year's Six bowl game, but you're not going to have a chance to wake up on Sunday morning and anxiously await that reveal. So, yeah, I think every coach says we want to play early and get it over with. So I think they like that. I don't think there's any advantage to, knowing what they have to do, if they were to play later. So I think they just want to go out and try to get that 12th win. And if they get into that Final Four, great. If not, they've kind of set this program up pretty well, moving into the SEC and the 12-team playoff.
Roger, we were just talking about, some things from over Thanksgiving, and like Dolly Parton was probably like the number one most talked about thing in this country over Thanksgiving. You could argue, but number two might have been the debut of Arch Manning. I mean, the buzz that spread across social media when it was, known that he was going to be entering the game, and the people that I was with, it felt different than watching some other game. What was it like to see, and what were your thoughts, and just kind of, this big moment finally coming to fruition there with Arch making his Texas debut?
Well, full disclosure, guys, I was roughing it in the Virgin Islands.
Oh, okay. Okay.
With the UT women's
you
basketball
had the women's
team
basketball tournament.
Nice.
That's
at
right.
the Paradise Dam. And Craig, I thought you were going to say the most talked about thing was Texas's 3 wins in the Virgin Islands by a combined 136 points.
Hey.
And leading High Point 32-0 before they hit a bucket with 15 seconds to go in the quarter. I thought that's what everybody was talking about.
That was number 3.
I hear you.
Yeah, we missed that part. Yeah.
But I think under the circumstances is what led to the delirium. They clearly are going to win the game, and then Arch comes in, and it's already a celebration. So it was kind of the perfect storm for everybody just to go crazy. Now, if he comes in because he has to, or for other reasons, it might not be the same. But I think it was just kind of a part of that fourth quarter party at DKR, and yeah, it was cool to see him out there for the fans, I'm sure. And then you find out that he was out there because Sark said Malik Murphy got banged up on the celebration after Keelan Robinson's kickoff return for a touchdown. So that's kind of bizarre. But, yeah, I think that capped off quite a night. And I'm sure Texas' staff liked to get him out there and kind of feel it, if you know what I mean, as all the portal stuff and all the talk is going to start happening.
Well, on that, with Malik Murphy in particular, would he be a guy who enters himself into the portal in December, or will he – I mean, if Quinn Ewers comes back, I think maybe, that's probably different. Or will he be a guy who maybe goes into the spring and then does it then?
Yeah, well, I think, first of all, if they're in the playoffs, I don't think he would. He seems like he's too much of a team guy. I get it. You got to take care of yourself. But if somehow they get into the playoff and suddenly
he could be playing.
Role,
yeah.
Exactly. So you can still do it later. You can wait for the spring. You can, you can wait. But it's just unrealistic to think that he's not going to at least take a look around. I mean, it's kind of like the deal with going into the draft when you can come back. Why not see what's out there? And we don't know what Quinn Ewers is going to do. And so, I just can't imagine, I've talked to you guys before, that these 3 guys will be on this roster next year. It just doesn't seem realistic. Maybe it'll happen. I mean, if Sark talks about culture, that would be the ultimate culture flex to keep all these guys around.
Yeah, and then they have new bodies coming in pretty soon. I want to discuss the special teams. You mentioned Robinson's kick return. Worthy's had a punt return. They cover kicks, it seems like to me, pretty well. I'll never forget Wisner blew up Baylor when they played earlier this year on a kick return. And here's a guy that's a former high-level running back, or is a running back, and scored in the game against Texas Tech. And then Auburn has been ridiculous as a kicker. I've always said good teams can be really good, even great, if their special teams are good. Is that kind of what you see with Texas?
Yeah, and it's kind of strange because it's something that Sark kept saying he felt like they were close. And, coaches say a lot of stuff. And, you return a punt for 9, and he thought it could go for 90 or something like that. Well, he turned out to be right, because all of a sudden, the back half of the season, they're making huge plays, both in the return game, punting, and obviously Keelan Robinson. I mean, that was the hammer. You go into the half down 26-7, and then you look up and it's 33-7, 15 seconds into the second half. And then the coverage has been great. Ryan Sanborn, if you're Sark and you're going to go to the portal, you better get guys that are going to make a difference. If your roster's as good as you think it is, and it turns out it seems like it is, and he's been a huge difference, bringing in Sanborn from Stanford to punt. And then, Auburn, nobody knew he was going to get on this kind of heater. So, they're just, the offense numbers haven't really been off the charts, as you guys know, but when you can score in special teams, when your defense can create some stuff, it changes things dramatically.
Roger, I know that the focus right now is on Saturday, but as we're talking about, there's the transfer portal, there's, next season in the SEC, and I want to at least touch on that because there is some news coming out about what that is going to look like in some cases. The big Texas A&M game, after all these years, will be taking place on Saturday, November the 30th. I've seen, some split opinions about Thanksgiving Day and all of that, but that's obviously going to be a monster game. But, I mean, they got Michigan on the road in the non-con next year. They've got Georgia. Arkansas's back on the schedule. A&M's back on the schedule. You're still playing OU. There's Florida. I mean, this thing is going to be ridiculous, and I know that's why they did it. But just your thoughts on kind of some of that being unveiled, but in particular on A&M and Texas and next November 30th on a Saturday.
Yeah, that's going to be something else. And, Thursday is, I assume they'll keep the Egg Bowl on Thanksgiving night. So then, that's why they wouldn't move it back to there. And then, the Big 12 would announce Saturday of that weekend, and then they would reserve the right to move it to Friday. We saw that. I don't know if that's the case with the SEC, if they say, all right, they're going to play it Saturday until they decide not. But, obviously that's going to be something else in the last game of the regular season. So you wonder what's on the line. And then, how about Georgia coming here? That's going to be around the OU game. They haven't announced the OU game, but typically that OU game would be a week or 2 weeks before the Georgia game here, which, by the way, is Formula One weekend. So stay away from Austin unless you've got to play today. Yeah. So, and I was thinking today, if Texas gets jumped by Alabama, why do you go play Michigan?
Yeah.
I mean, what's the point? Clearly that win in Alabama wouldn't mean anything in terms of you beat them head to head. Now I get it. They're, it's about a marquee matchup and all that, but, kind of half joking. I mean, there's no point in playing it if you have actual proof that it didn't help you. And so, but we'll see what happens.
Roger, and the logic they would use is like Alabama's better now. Well, sorry, it's not Texas's fault that Alabama was trying to figure themselves out in September and Texas wasn't.
Everyone has their own way of their own narrative.
Alabama, though, and the reason they're so scary, even for a school like Texas that, given the same position, would probably be given the same benefit of the doubt a lot of the time, is Alabama seems to get there's no punishment for anything they do wrong. They lost. So did this other team.
For so long, they and Georgia were so good, or Clemson. It's like, well, they have to be in the playoff, right? No, not everybody does. Not everybody wins a ribbon.
Right, David. I think it's recent history, and the committees, they're human. They're going, well, they must be a top 4 team. Look what they did. But you're right. And clearly, Jalen Milroe had his moments against Texas. Yeah, he made a couple of bad plays, but he had plenty of dynamic moments against Texas way back on September 9th. But you're right. It would be, X would implode on Sunday if it comes down to that, and Texas gets jumped. But obviously a lot of things have to happen. And I'm sure the committee could argue, well, they beat the number 1 team on a neutral site field and they lost 11 weeks ago. So, they'll have their ducks in a row if it happens. But we'll see. We'll see what happens with Louisville and Florida State, too.
Yeah, there's a lot of games still to be played. And then you look at the Alpha logos and brands, and this one has, including Texas, Ohio State, Michigan, Georgia, maybe even Alabama. I mean, it's And Florida State's a pretty rich history, too. Thank you, Raj. Appreciate it. Enjoy the broadcast. Thanks for your time today.
Thanks, guys. Good talking to you as always.
Roger Wallace covers UT, color analyst for UT, with us on 365 Sports.
Yeah, that's a hellacious schedule. I mean, compared